My son pulled out a drawing, a simple sketch of a family of 3. The dad in the drawing had short golden curls, just like Gina's first love. Under everyone's gaze, he protected our son behind him. Justin is just a kid, it's just scribbles. Don't take it out on him. Gina stayed silent, while my son quietly held onto her hand, looking at me and whispering, "Ben, he's so scary." Looking at the harmonious scene in front of me, I accepted the system's advice and used my points to leave this world. But before I went, the two suddenly tried everything they could to stop me. Before stepping into the void, I saw my son crying on the floor, and I turned away. I said nobody could stop me. When I saw the drawing my son made, I froze like a statue, my ears buzzing. The system's mocking voice hit my ears, "True to form, your little boy." No one spoke then. The air was filled with silence. It wasn't because my son drew a family of 3, but because the man in the picture wasn't me. Instead, it was Ben with those short golden curls. "Ben, is my drawing not good?" My son asked Ben when no one else spoke. I felt a chill in my heart. Ben discreetly protected my son behind him like I was some monster ready to pounce. "Justin is little and doesn't know better. It's just scribbling. Don't blame him. If anything, blame me." When Ben said that, my son shrank back a bit, timidly saying, "Ben, he's really scary." I glanced at Gina. She, as usual, acted like this had nothing to do with her, looking more indifferent than the guests around us. Someone stepped up to break the tension. "The cake is here. Let's cut it." That got everyone talking, agreeing we should cut the cake. The cake was brought over, and my son picked up the knife and cut a piece. "Ben, this is for you." He skipped right past me and gave the first slice to Ben, who was standing behind me. The next slice went to Gina. Ben faked a bit of discomfort, glanced my way, then whispered something to my son. Reluctantly, my son cut another piece and handed it to me. "Dad, have some cake." Under everyone's gaze, I suddenly felt those looks were unbearably piercing. It's like I shouldn't have even been there. The system's voice echoed again. "Justin is allergic to milk. You made this special milk-free cake just for him. Aren't you going to try it?" I scolded the system in my head to shut up, but it didn't change the sting I still felt deep down. Sure, its words were meant to provoke, but wasn't everything happening real? Gina was staring at me, annoyed that I hadn't taken the cake for so long, her brow furrowed. I took a deep breath, and in the next moment, I slapped Justin's hand, knocking the cake to the floor. He was just a kid. Tears sprang up instantly from the shock. As his cries filled the room, I suppressed the churn of emotions inside me and turned to leave. Everyone gets tired. I wanted a break too. When I got home, I started packing my things. Maybe I couldn't take the money from this world, but the stuff I bought for the house over the years, I wasn't about to leave those behind. I was halfway done when there was a knock at the bedroom door. Gina's voice came from outside. "John, let's talk." I opened the door wide, recoiling a step at her alcoholic breath. Turning away, I pulled out the divorce papers I'd asked my assistant to prepare. When she saw the papers, Gina looked puzzled. Then her face returned to that familiar indifference. "John, stop it. You're divorcing me over today's incident?" She looked so unreasonable that I turned and signed my name on the agreement. "Look it over, and if you're okay with it, just sign. You can have custody of Justin, I just want the money." Gina rubbed her forehead, looking tired. "All right, tomorrow take the kid to the amusement park. Bond with him well. He'll understand your intentions when he grows up." Bonding with my son? Listening to her, I let out a bitter laugh, lost in thought. The painful memories drifted back. During recovery, the system would always say, "They're not your family. They're the ones bringing you pain." I never answered back then, just held my little baby, singing lullabies to drown out the system. I've always been with Justin. For 8 years, I was there for him every moment he needed me. I'm his dad, and when he's confused, it's my job to show him the right path, even if the right path goes against every one of his desires. And now this absentee mother has the nerve to say I should cater to my own son to build our relationship? It's ridiculous. First, before Ben showed up, Gina was pretty nice to me. But every bit of kindness vanished the second Ben re-entered the picture. Even Justin, my own flesh and blood, got drawn to Ben just like his mom. From calling me dad to acting more like Gina, cold at heart. Maybe only someone as sunny as Ben can warm them up. The system chuckled in my ear. What? Heart all frosty again? I snapped back to reality. The system never told me what my mission in this strange world was all these years. It just promised on behalf of the main god, once my progress was complete, I could go back. A week ago, it told me my progress bar was full, and I could use my points to open a passage home. It wanted me to leave then, but I declined. Even disregarding Gina, I still harbored some fantasy for my son, related by blood. But today, it's finally shattered. Seeing my silence, Gina grabbed the divorce papers and tossed them aside. John, if you want money, I'll have the assistant transfer it to you tomorrow. Realizing we couldn't have a proper conversation, I slammed the door shut. Might as well focus on packing. The papers could always be signed later. The system grumbled while it helped stuff my things into the space. You've got at most a month to leave. I paused, nodded, and continued packing. The system let out a sarcastic laugh. You're still hesitating? Haven't you learned your lesson? I was just about to retort when suddenly everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I saw Justin asleep. In my anger earlier, I hadn't realized Justin hadn't gone back with Gina. But where is this place? I was confused, and then suddenly I saw Ben's face. Justin, how about we have a glass of milk before bed? As I watched Justin take it, I panicked and wanted to stop him immediately. He's allergic to milk. How could he drink it? But just as I took a step forward, an invisible barrier blocked me. Looks like another trick from the system. I was anxious, but my worry seemed unnecessary. Justin knows he can't drink milk. He wouldn't. But then, the next second, he downed it in one gulp. Ben, you're so nice. Dad never lets me drink milk. Dad's never been so thoughtful. Justin's voice resonated clearly since I was so close. I didn't know what to say, frozen in place. Then, in a blink, the system transported me back. I sat on the floor, staring off into space until Gina knocked hard on my door. That's when I realized what I just saw had already happened. John, Ben called me. Justin's having an allergic reaction. I snapped back to reality, trembling as I got up. Just as I touched the door handle, my tone turned cold. If he's having an allergic reaction, take him to the hospital. Am I a doctor? No one made a peep outside the door, but I could imagine Gina's expression. This time, she didn't linger long. Maybe she really was worried about Justin. The next sound I heard was her car driving away. I felt drained. The system advised me to take a shower and sleep early. Half-hearted, I eventually gave in to my body's clock, and sleep overcame me. The next morning, as soon as I woke up, I noticed a dozen unread messages on my phone, mostly from Gina's assistant. Reading them, I oddly felt relieved. Sir, here's the revised divorce agreement. Gina said she's already signed it, just waiting for you. Not wasting any time, I washed up and started reviewing the new divorce agreement. John's custody stays with Gina, and the other contents were pretty much the same as my earlier draft. Except for the part about asset division, Gina only allocated me $50 million. I cursed under my breath. Real stingy. But remembering what the system said, I didn't hesitate and agreed to sign. The assistant was quick. The contract was delivered to me within half an hour. After I signed, the assistant glanced at their phone, looking a bit troubled but said, Sir, the little master has woken up in the hospital. This was clearly a nugget Gina intended for the assistant to leak. I responded flatly, grabbed a suitcase, and left. The assistant already had a car ready to pick me up. Looking down, I felt a strange heaviness in my chest. Why was Gina so keen to inform me about Justin waking up? Just banking on the idea that once I heard about him, I'd rush over? I smirked. If I didn't know better, I might have gone. But then I just witnessed their happy family scene again. Shortly after, my account showed a transfer of $50 million. Not much for Gina, really. It's not like she couldn't spare more. She just wanted to push me to go back to her. It's how things went every time we argued. Gina would manufacture chances, forcing me to communicate with her. Basically, waiting for me to make the first move. But times have changed. The assistant arranged things well. I already had a place set up. Moving in, I immediately began prepping for the foundation. I deliberately avoided thinking about them and focused on my work, cutting off any news. But just when I thought Gina was handling things decisively, I received a message. Your son is sick and asking for you. Attached was a photo of Justin in the hospital. His face flushed with fever. So pitiful. I ignored it. There was an investor meet I needed to attend that night. Even with time, I wouldn't have gone. At the event, I hadn't even entered before recognizing two familiar figures. Daddy! Justin rushed towards me. Gina stood not far off, seemingly convinced I'd catch our child. Instead, I shifted slightly. A painful thud followed as Justin hit the ground. I calmly took someone's arm and walked away. Gina's face turned dark. Justin's eyes filled with tears, his fever-reddened face turning even redder. Gina and I silently faced off until a waiter stepped in, helping Justin up. Everyone around could see what just transpired, but whispers were all I heard, as everyone pretended not to notice. I had no clue why Gina and Justin showed up here, but they weren't going to derail my plans. Over the years, I ran a small entertainment company. Though not massive, it was profitable. I sold it and poured the money into the foundation. As the chief organizer, thanks to Gina's unintended opportunity during the fundraiser, she unknowingly contributed $2 million. As for transforming funds into supplies for remote areas, I left that to my most trusted assistant to handle. Before leaving, he clung to my leg as if we were having a heartfelt farewell. Only after I reassured him multiple times of my well-being did he reluctantly leave. Watching him go, I felt a bit sentimental. Over the past decade, he was the one person I interacted with the most. A little hard parting with him. With that thought, I sent a bonus his way. The system reminded me of a mere week left in this world. I wasn't going to waste it. So, through a connection from last time, I visited a bar with all the services. Just as things were getting lively, the door burst open, followed by camera flashes. Ben stood behind several photographers, a sly grin on his face. You'd think I'd panic? But on camera, I casually put my arm around a model's waist and struck a pose that looked like it was straight out of a magazine. With everyone else frozen in place, I quickly made my way out of the room. On the way, I casually punched Ben, who was standing behind the door. Ben was stunned, his face full of disbelief. I've kept up appearances over the years, but the truth is, I used to be just a crazy worker bee. Maybe it's because I haven't been drunk in a long time. But today, getting drunk in a bar brought back my old self. Are you crazy? That slap almost made Ben lose his cool. I thought his tricks were over, but just as I was about to speak, Gina appeared behind Ben with Justin in tow. Gina's lips were a straight line, silent, but I know her well enough to see she was holding back anger. Even Justin, who usually stood by Ben, didn't rush over. He simply mumbled, "Dad. John, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry." Justin's eyes were immediately filled with concern. Looking at the group, a thought popped into my head. If you don't care, then words and actions meant to hurt you can't penetrate your defenses. I didn't care about what they thought anymore. Recently, I was persistent with the system and finally got it to reveal what my quest was. I realized it feeds on my negative emotions to gain energy. I could have guessed what the task was, but hearing it out loud was shocking. Over a decade, I need to collect 3,000 incidences of negative emotions influenced by external forces to complete the task. No wonder the system didn't want to tell me the content. Back when I first arrived, I'd have thought I could never go back after seeing this task. Yeah, at that time, who would have thought I'd make it through all this? In my past life, I died suddenly from exhaustion. The system gave me a new life. It uses me for some energy, which makes sense. And from a non-human point of view, I shouldn't hate Gina, Ben, or Justin. They helped me complete most of my tasks. Even if I don't hate them, I'm not forgiving them either. I'm done with nostalgia. I remember when I first met Ben, his conversational skills were charming. Until the glass of wine I handed him ended up spilled all over himself. Back then, I trusted Gina a lot and believed she could see through any cheap trick. But from that, I learned you can't wake someone pretending to be asleep. These days, the system promised that once I return, it would give me a healthy body, some money, and even erase my memory. I'm not against the money and health, but I refuse to have my memory wiped. This experience is valuable. I need to move on and learn from it, not forget and repeat the same mistakes. I took a couple of steps forward and accidentally stepped on Ben's hand. He let out a scream, and Gina quickly rushed over, but she didn't check on Ben first. She was concerned about me. I spat out a few words, and Gina relaxed her grip right away. Better late than never, I said slowly. The last woman companion I had was quite perceptive. She held me as I walked out. I finally remembered her name, Judy. A great name. Laughing, I left with her. Judy saw me home and then left. I washed up quickly and collapsed on the couch, instantly falling asleep. The next morning, just as I expected, Ben posted photos of me with models at the karaoke spot online. I was quite pleased to see that there were no ugly photos trending. But my assistant, who had just flown back, was upset, rushing to get the trending topic removed. I couldn't care less. Then the system's voice came and I froze. What? I was questioning my hearing after the system spoke. Yeah, I didn't expect it either. You'll just have to wait, the system said apologetically. I was kind of losing it. Apparently, part of the energy needed to activate the space was still missing, and I had to wait longer. When I asked how long, I almost lost it. A year, said the system. I was seething. Is there no other way? I used every bit of patience to ask, and the system finally spoke, hesitantly. There is, but it'll be a bit tough on you. I told it to spit it out. I had to, otherwise I was going to be stuck here for a year, likely ending up back as a worker bee with my current funds. You need more contact with the child of the world. Sacrifice a bit, and I promise we'll be out in a week tops. I raised an eyebrow. You mean I should just go endure another week of this crap? The system quickly replied, no, just contact will do. Reluctantly, I took Gina off the blacklist. After letting my assistant handle the trending topic, I saw a message from Gina. She was silent for a bit, then started typing. Can we meet? Just give me some time. I was about to decline this invitation, but remembering my way back home, I agreed. On the way to the restaurant, my assistant mentioned that before he could do anything about the trending content, someone else had already bought it out. I didn't need much brain power to guess who it was. But I was surprised when I got to the restaurant. As soon as I sat down, Gina apologized first thing. I'm sorry, didn't mean to cause you trouble. She started. She was unusually chatty, and I caught on to what she was getting at. Turns out, Ben had lied about needing a camera for a friend's birthday and ended up bringing Gina and Justin along, as well as the videographer. They snapped photos of me because Ben had mistaken the room and stumbled upon me unintentionally. The photographer had released the photos out of spite after failing to blackmail Ben for money. I wasn't paying much attention. Once she finished talking, I finally said, "Do you believe it?" Clearly, Gina was caught off guard by my question. I chuckled knowingly, interrupting her as she tried to explain. Enough, I understand, you don't need to continue. Seeing me focus solely on eating, Gina's face showed rare hints of nervousness. I was surprised by her expression since she'd only ever shown it for Ben before. But surprise was all I could feel. The old me didn't care about these things anymore. I wouldn't beg for someone's love. Tomorrow, Justin's school is having a parent-child sports day. Want to go together? Gina looked at my expression and asked cautiously. Maybe because I was close to going back home, I was in a decent mood and nodded. Sure, what time? After agreeing on a time, Gina offered to drive me back. I turned her down. The system said I'd maxed out my energy level today. The system sighed in my head. Use and discard. I chuckled and, noticing my assistant's curious look, told him to drive us to grab a late-night snack. I've never really been into those skimpy portions at Western restaurants, yet Gina always picks them when we meet up. The next morning, when I got to Justin's preschool, Gina and he had been waiting for me at the entrance for quite a while. Seeing me, Gina handed me a shirt, a matching outfit the preschool required it. I nodded, didn't say much, and went to change. When I came back, Gina had the shirt on too, with a big smiling flower printed on the chest. It really clashed with her vibe. Gina awkwardly scratched her head, then led me to Justin's class. First up was a relay race. Though Gina sits in an office most of the time, she's active and was way ahead of the other parents. But when it was Justin's turn, he stumbled and fell flat on his face. He walked toward me, looking all pouty, and I took the first aid kit to patch him up. "Dad," Justin suddenly said. I looked up at the face that was a spitting image of Gina's, suppressing the last bit of emotion swirling inside me. "Don't leave me," he whispered, his words barely audible. But as a dad who heard his first babbles, how could I not understand? Still, I pretended I didn't hear and continued to tend to his wound. Gina heard the commotion and rushed over. Just as she was about to speak, another voice piped up behind her. "Justin, how'd you get hurt?" Seeing Ben show up unexpectedly, I immediately looked at Gina. Gina looked a bit awkward. I just offhandedly mentioned Justin's sports day. Ben was also wearing that silly flower print top, and when the teacher came, she first looked at him. "Justin's dad, is he all right?" At these words, everyone fell silent. Justin kept a straight face. "Teacher, this is my dad." Justin tugged at me as he spoke. The teacher looked a bit taken aback, then slightly embarrassed. It didn't faze me. This kind of mix-up was routine. I stopped caring long ago. Justin used to get picked up by the family driver, so at some point, Ben became dad in the teacher's eyes whenever he occasionally grabbed Justin. Ben's embarrassment was evident, but before he could say anything, Gina suddenly snapped. "Why are you here at an event like this?" It was rare for Gina to lose her temper. Ben was stunned. "Sorry, Gina. I just hadn't seen Justin in a while. Thought I'd drop by." Seeing Gina's anger fade so quickly, I stood by, finding it all pretty amusing. "Fine, you head back. I'll bring Justin over sometime," Gina said, still stern but obviously softening. Catching my eye on the whole scene, she seemed uneasy. "John," Gina said, mouth open but ultimately saying nothing. At the sports field, the next activity was a parent-child ball toss, where teamwork was the goal. Justin's leg was hurt, so the teacher didn't want us to participate, but he insisted. "I can do it," and Gina was fine with it, so the teacher didn't stop us. The basket was too high for kids. The rules had dads tossing and kids fetching. Lost in thought, Justin handed me a ball. "Dad, here you go." In the light-hearted chaos, Justin and I were a subdued pair. Until, suddenly, I nailed a three-pointer. Everyone turned to look, and some kids even came over, inquisitive. I kept on shooting, rarely missing. Back in middle school, with nobody watching, I spent hours shooting hoops downstairs, and it showed. With each compliment, Justin's little face flushed scarlet. "Justin, your dad's amazing," a sweet voice of a little girl chimed in. On seeing her, Justin's cheeks turned even rosier. Kids' likes are just that simple, I guess. No doubt we won this event. Justin held onto the small medal, eyes sparkling at me. But the gaze he met was one I no longer had from the past. Gina invited me to dinner, but I declined again. In the days following, we met every day, and once the system was done with its energy absorbance, I'd make my exit. Today, we planned to meet at the amusement park with Justin tagging along. Justin was careful beside us, and spotting a dad lifting his kid nearby, he sneakily glanced at me. But I wasn't buying. I was busy on my phone. I won a charity award because of setting up a foundation earlier. Just played around in the morning and found an excuse to leave. The system in my mind told me I had enough energy and could head back today. I was super happy, but decided to stick around for the evening party before leaving. At the venue, I stepped onto the award stage. My partner was Judy, the same as last time. Out of everyone, spending time with her was the most comfortable for me. There were quite a few people in the crowd, but Gina and Justin stood out, right at the front, hard to ignore. Gina hadn't noticed Judy yet. She was smiling lightly, looking genuinely happy for me. Justin appeared starstruck, his eyes practically sparkling. I glanced at them and looked away. They were just two more people celebrating for me. Tonight was my night. I spoke freely on stage, sharing my acceptance speech. Moved even myself at the end. With a round of applause, I left the stage, stepping away from my highlight moment towards something greater. With one last look at the venue, the system told me it had opened a path for me by the lake. I raised an eyebrow. Wasn't it like jumping into the river? The system gave a mysterious smile. A person disappearing into thin air needed to make sense, right? I drove myself to the lake without any assistant. The moon was bright, reflecting beautifully on the water. Then two shouts interrupted from behind. They got out of the car. Turns out they had been following me all along. They couldn't see the pathway on the lake, just me at the shore, seemingly about to end it all. I started to get the system's intent. John, please come back. I won't bother you anymore. Just come back. Gina's voice cracked in despair, all her elegance gone. I barely looked at her. What didn't I know? All those coincidences, injuries, just Gina's manipulations. I needed to use her too. No debt here, just mutually beneficial. Justin, younger, didn't grasp the gravity of death, and I'd always warned him against the dangerous shores. Even now, my usually composed son was panicking. He cried pitifully, running to me. Dad, don't go. Compared to past staged falls, this time he was genuinely hurt. His delicate skin scraped, bleeding from the ground, yet he got up, running. Dad, don't leave me. I calmly walked into the lake, water up to my calves. Facing the glowing path ahead, I turned back to see Justin nearing the lake's edge. Go home, I told him. I'm going home. No one can stop me. Then decisively turned and entered that space. From their view, I vanished beneath the water. Moments before the space closed, their frantic cries seemed to still pierce through. When I opened my eyes, I was home. My computer screen still bright, but I felt no exhaustion at all. I called for the system in my mind, but there was no response. It was like it never happened. Then a $2 billion transfer hit my bank account. Just when I was feeling pleasantly surprised, the system's weak voice chimed in. Phew, didn't know it was your stuff eating up all my energy. The system urged me to buy a house quickly so it could unload everything from the space. Suddenly energized, I quit my job in the middle of a call about submitting a proposal. Days passed as I looked for, bought a house, and got all the necessary stuff. I was worn out. Suddenly, I missed having an assistant. The system suggested I could find a new one. I was about to declare no one could replace it when I saw his name on the first resume. I was speechless. The system quickly explained. It's not hard to pull a person from that little world. I didn't speak, and sensing my thoughts, the system continued. Didn't expect Gina's deep feelings for you. After you left, she drank by that lake every day. Got drunk and accidentally fell in. If not for her, a child of destiny, passing, it wouldn't have been easy to pull someone back. I nodded, needing a moment with the past. Before I could fully process, the system went on. And predictably, Justin will grow to be the new world's child. He's now with the family being raised. I raised an eyebrow, wondering about the next person to face this string of misfortunes. A father dying young, a mother lost to drink, and a child bearing trauma. I shuddered.